Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Kevin Surace. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you for having me on.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Probably never enough, but I grew up really mostly in the 70s and late 60s. And so I think it was a time that parents, certainly my parents and certainly my dad, would teach us more about money than I think kids get taught today. That's just my own perception. So I'd go to the grocery store and dad would say, "Hey, can you imagine the budget for groceries at the time for a family of four was like $28?" And he would count it up, everything he bought, because 28 was the budget for the week. And he had his coupons, and you had coupons that mom cut out of the paper, and you had dad that said the budget's $28. Yeah, but I want this candy, or I want this thing. Doesn't fit in the budget. There's actually great value when you're young, understanding there's actually a budget, just like there is when you run a business. There's a budget, and if you don't meet your budgets, top line, bottom line, expenses, etc., then the wheels come off the bus. So I think that was a good learning. We certainly learned about savings and putting money in a savings. I had a savings account when I was a kid. I think, I had $12 in it, and it earned an occasional penny. And then lastly, I had a business even when I was a young teenager, repairing radios and tape recorders and televisions and things like that. I learned how to repair them. I was excited to repair them. I loved electronics, and I charged for that. And I'd charge, $5 to fix someone's television. $5 seemed like so much money, right? But and for them, it was really cheap. Who would come to their house for $5 to fix anything? So I guess I learned more than I thought.
That was above minimum wage back then.
It was
For an
above
hour.
minimum wage, yes. But who else would show up with a bucket of tubes and fix your TV?
Well, back then they did, didn't they? I mean,
Not for $5.
not for five, but it wasn't. I mean, maybe it would be the weekly grocery budget,
Right.
maybe a little
Maybe
more.
it'd be $30 or $50 or $40 or something
Right.
like that. But nobody would do it for $5. But I had a corner on the market for $5, and for $1 I'd fix someone's radio. So I didn't earn very much, but it seemed like a lot. I had no expenses. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a grocery bill. All I could do was save my money and then buy more electronics, which my dad didn't understand. Why are you spending your money on resistors, capacitors, and tubes and transistors and a few ICs? I said, well, because I'm building this lab and I'm doing this work. And it's going, what? You're wasting your money. But I didn't waste my money, because I still have that entire set of drawers of resistors and capacitors. So I've kept them, and they've got great value. Probably no more than what I spent on them, but I have them.
Was that all at Radio Shack?
Yeah, mostly at Radio Shack, indeed. When there was a Radio Shack, I'd spend much of my afternoon at Radio Shack just looking at things, every little thing. What'd you get in this week? I knew the manager, so I'd walk over almost every day and we'd just chat, right? And I'd help him sell stuff because I was just around and I knew everything in the store, literally everything. I'd go through that catalog literally page by page, and I knew everything. And of course, it's kind of two sides of that story. You had, consumer devices, right? Radios and tape recorders and things like that. And then you had the other side, which is resistors, capacitors, and transistors, and a tube tester, right? And half the people didn't know what that stuff was, but I did. So it was a fun playground.
And it was back in the do-it-yourself days. I mean, people actually fixed things, took things apart, repaired
Yes.
them, and it was
Actually,
a different
every
time.
consumer electronics manufacturer had repair manuals. And in fact, you could buy these books called Sam's Facts. Sam Facts, I think they were called. And so you would get the Sam Facts for your particular television or whatever it was. And it would teach you how to fix it. Test for these voltages, this, and this. And if that didn't, then you need this tube, or you need this transistor, you need to change the power supply, or whatever it was. And people really took great pride in fixing things rather than throwing them out. In the 60s and 70s, we weren't quite a throwaway society. We become that because a lot of our electronics today is really not repairable. I mean, these, our circuit boards are so tightly packed and only packed by machines that can very precisely place things that there's no way to maybe even get to the circuit board. And even if you could, there's no way to get that integrated circuit off the board. And if you did, you probably destroyed the board doing it. You got solder all over the place. So we've become a throwaway society, sadly, and it's pretty hard to fix most things unless it's, just the power supply in the printer. And then I can take the printer apart and probably replace just the power supply. But otherwise, it's pretty tough.
Well, I've replaced electronic boards and different appliances and things, but what I have found today is the cost of the board is so much that it's just not even worth the cost of the repair.
No, that's right.
You can just go buy a new one for the cost of the board. And
That is right. But notice you have to replace the whole board. I mean,
yes,
what we used to do is go on the board and say, oh, it's just this diode that burned out. Let me replace the diode. Okay, these diodes are not, they don't look like things with leads anymore. They're the tiniest little drop. There's no way you're getting that off the board and putting another one on. It's not, so you replace the whole board. And the whole board is, $116, and a whole brand new appliance costs you $99 on sale. None of this makes any sense, right? Yeah.
So I'm assuming that kind of background, you went into tech?
I did indeed.
Big time.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I went to school at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, got a electrical engineering technology degree, which included software, computer programming, computer software development, as well as hardware. And I went on to build things and patent lots of things that are in our everyday life today.
You have, 90-something patents?
95 worldwide patents as of 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Another one just came out.
Yes, it did. 94 became 95. Yeah, that is true.
So in the world of tech, clearly there's a lot of disruption going. The world has dramatically changed because of tech. I mean, Radio Shack got wiped out by, online stores and just the change in how that's all come to be. You're somewhat of a futurist. What are you seeing today? Like, if someone asks you, what's our future?
So many good things. I think a lot of people are worried about AI taking their jobs or burning up the world or something like that. So I don't worry about that. I think we as humans have worried about technology and technology change with every change that has happened. We worried when we put PCs on our desktop, when the internet occurred. We worried when the wheel was invented. Literally, it's what we do. Oh my goodness, that's so much change. We worried when we started automating agriculture, but we automated it so that only 1% of people in the world work in agriculture, or in the United States anyway, and they can feed all the United States and then some, right? So automation has been good. And every time automation happened, they said, oh, this time's different. And, the automation of farming, people did say it was different because at that moment, 65% of the country worked in farming, and then it was 1%, right? And so for those people, it's like, what else will I do? Well, lots of things, because you don't have to forage for food anymore. You don't have to work for the food. So what each successive generation of technology has done for us is made us more productive. And when we get more productive, we generate goods and services at a lower cost. And when you generate them at a lower cost, people buy more, which increases the GDP, increases the overall wealth. And I know every time I say that, someone on one of these shows writes, well, it hasn't affected me, and it hasn't. I understand that. I'm saying in general, you look at the wealth of the United States on a per capita basis, and, compared to about 285, 300 countries out there or so. And it's pretty amazing, actually, what has happened in this country. And yes, in every situation, there's people left behind. I get that. And I'm not trying to ignore that. But we do know that the U.S. has been at the forefront from the Industrial Revolution on of automating things. And automating things made services and goods cheaper, which made demand go up, right? The fact that you can have a Facebook today and pay nothing for it, and a little bit of advertising that flies by pays for it, basically. We can decide what's good or bad, but it's an amazing thing. It's amazing we can get on an airplane and fly across the country when it's on sale for, $150 one way. And you go, how can this be? Look at this contraption. I mean, this is amazing, right? I mean, all of this is incredible. It's really incredible. AI is going to drive down the costs of so many things, from healthcare to pharmaceuticals, to lots of services. Already it's driving down the cost of services, to the ability to sell. We are able to sell at a lower cost. We are able to create avatars that sell for us. So we're going to have a lot of things. It is also, by its nature of automation, going to eliminate some tasks, and some people who that's all they do will no longer have a job, right? So if your job 2 years ago was writing blog posts as an outsider, and people would pay you to write those blog posts, mostly that job is gone. It's not that you don't have any skills. It's that particular task, no one's going to pay you $1,500 to write a blog post anymore, because I can write 20, 30, 40, 50 of them today with GPT-4o, and I can drive my outcome and tell it what I want and do really well. And I'll give you an example. Okay, this podcast. Rocky, you're in the podcast business here. If this was 4 years ago, you would do the podcast, and when you were done, you'd have your recording. You would re-listen to the podcast, take notes, and try to type and summarize the podcast, right? And then you would take snippets of that and try to video snippet some things and try to make some snippets for social media. And so the podcast would be an hour, and there'd be another 8 hours of work to do. So you either hired someone or you had to learn to do it. Okay, today, everything I just mentioned about podcasts, if you want, we're on Riverside here, you could push the button and it will do it for you, right? It'll summarize it. It'll take notes. It's going to go video to text. So you have text of everything we said. It'll make snippets for social media. Like, you don't have to do anything. And it'll even edit it and go back and forth. So when you talk, you come up. When I talk, I come up. It does all. I don't have to put it in Final Cut Pro and do all this edit. It does it for me. Okay, that is AI at the best of making you more productive so that you can have more podcasts because you're not spending 8 hours doing the back end work. You know, someone who you used to pay to do that, you might not have to pay to do that anymore. The machine does it, right? So these are the things. Lastly, there's technology I'm working on at a company called AppVance that automates the finding of bugs in enterprise software, high-end software. There's about 2.5 to 3 million people employed in that business today around the world. A lot of them in India, as well as other countries. They're manual testers or QA automation engineers. Okay, I does all that work today. I mean, we do that at AppVance, and we can find 10 times the bugs that humans can. Period, full stop. That's not an arguable. It's a knowable. That doesn't say everyone wants it. They're scared of it. But the truth is that task, whether it's this year or 5 years from now, that task is gone from humans. Not going to do it. So your question, better get back to your question. Your question was, what do you see for the future? AI is going to take some jobs. It's going to take some tasks. It's going to upshift what we work on. We're all going to be robot overlords. We're going to tell the AI what we want. We're going to get what we want from it. Eventually, we're going to have humanoid robots. We're going to tell them what we want. They will be our partners, so to speak. But we're going to be the robot overlords, and we're going to be very critical thinking about what we want from that. The second thing that's happening is Healthspan. So we are going from a time where clearly everyone's going to die in, whatever, their 70s, 80s, 90s maybe, to a time when we reach what's called escape velocity, and AI is helping a lot with this, with epigenetics and other things. And escape velocity is when we're aging a year, but the technology is advancing so fast that our biomarkers are going backwards a year, so that we actually kind of stop equivalent of aging, right? So I'm not 88, but I go from 88 to 89, but then I'm really 88 again. Then I go from 89 to 90, but I'm still 88. And eventually we will get beyond escape velocity. We're going backwards 2 years in our biological age versus going forward a year, right? This is not far away. I can tell you, I'm looking at all of the technology. We're talking about this today at an event I was at. And this is incredible. It's incredible. So certainly over the next decade or two, we're going to see us hit that point. And it's possible that there is a person already born who is either going to live hundreds of years or the equivalent of almost forever, right? They've already been born. They may be 10 years old right now, but they've already been born. That's how fast this technology is going. Again, really helped by AI. So what's the future look like? Amazing. What's the downside? I don't know. With 8 or 9 billion people, if they all live forever and we keep having babies, that doesn't end well either, right? So, we'll have to work our way through that, but it's an incredible world ahead of us.
So let's kind of hit a couple of those points. We're already seeing not a population decline, but a birth rate decline so we've kind of, I don't know, we might have hit peak population. We're starting to come on the downside of that. So living longer will be one way to solve that.
Yep.
When it comes to health span, though, and at least from what I've seen today, the number one thing is stay healthy. And the number one way to stay healthy so far is diet, exercise, and movement and so forth, and being able to do that. And if you do that well, then you'll live long enough for all these other things to kind of come in
that's
and
right.
kick in.
You can extend your health span a few years. But look, if your parents all died at 80, I'm making it up. Maybe you make it to 82 or 83. Maybe you get to 78. But the data show that you're probably not the outlier that goes to 110, right? Because your genetics probably doesn't do that. And we all know people whose parents died in their 60s, and the next generation does everything they can to beat that, and they get to, 5 years longer, but they don't live to 100 because their genes didn't allow them to do that. So you can only buy a few years right now on exercise and food, but in diet. And these are good things. And GLP-1s maybe too, because they're showing some real promise. But we haven't hacked the epigenetics of what is making our cells older. That is, no matter what you do, your cells are getting older. They're aging. And we need to get to the point where they're no longer aging. And now that we've analyzed things like sponges that live 1,000 years, and you go, their cells don't age. In fact, our cells are actually programmed to age. They're programmed. They were programmed to kill us for lots of reasons. Basically, otherwise there'd be overpopulation and all those other things, right? You've outlived your usefulness. But what happens when we solve for that and we are not far away and we stop your cells from aging? That is, you take an injection, your cells just don't age. Now, maybe we don't go backwards, but Rocky will look exactly like this forever. His brain won't age, the hair won't age, maybe you grow some hair back, who knows, right? And so that's a very interesting thing. And clearly, you will still need diet and exercise because you could kill yourself with a heart attack if you overate or didn't take care of yourself or whatever. So those still count, but will stop your cells from aging. So now, just because your parents died at 60 doesn't mean you die at 60. Maybe it's 300. Don't know. Your cells didn't age. Your organs didn't age. Your heart didn't get old. It's just the same heart. This is fascinating. I don't think it's science fiction. There's enough data there to say it isn't science fiction.
And I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but the one thing I do know is it really sucks to be old and not healthy. Being not mobile, not strong. The biggest things we're working on is not so much longevity. It's how do I increase my health span? Meaning,
that's right.
How do I stay healthy and vibrant even when I'm 75 or 80?
That's right. All the way to death.
If these things, all the way to death, I want to run and have my heart attack running at 95 or something.
That's right. That's right.
I want to be fully mobile because without mobility, you don't get to enjoy life. And we'll talk about that. You made a comment also during talking about AI. So one of the things with technology is the change of pace is clearly moving faster and faster than ever. It took a long time to go from agriculture to a manufacturing economy. But at least we took people and we gave them something to do, some purpose, right? Then we went from manufacturing to the consumerism economy, so to speak, knowledge economy. And that's where we've been. Now we're taking away the knowledge economy in a sense, because that's really what AI can do. In the meantime, kind of what you were talking about with jobs, we're flattening the curve in the sense of what used to be a job in the United States can now be outsourced anywhere in the world. The whole world, I think the reason the United States isn't seeing as much prosperity to everyone is the rest of the world is catching up. And so you're seeing global shifts, whereas in the past, it was only here. Now everyone's catching up to that. But really the key point that you talked about, and a key point for being good with AI is critical thinking. And that is not a skill that has been taught for over 100 years on average.
True. Absolutely a problem.
So at what point does AI and robots make some people obsolete because they haven't made themselves relevant, I guess, in a sense?
Well, look, let's say this, right? If you look at the people that primarily, right, that have good standard of living today, good salaries, good whatever, right? I think we would find a preponderance of critical thinkers are in that category of high earners, and the preponderance of non-critical thinkers are not. And yes, there's some overlap, right? But I think we would find that. And I certainly see that in all the businesses I'm involved in, is that we need people at all levels, by the way. But the less critically thinking people are at those lower levels of jobs. And they kind of stay there, right? Now, could they have learned critical thinking? Don't know. Some people, not everyone can learn everything, right? Not everyone's an entrepreneur. Not everyone can learn to sell. Not everyone can learn to market. Not everyone can learn to code. Remember about 20 years ago, and we were going to upskill workers coming out of factories to coders. And if some were able to code, they could critically think through the logic of writing code. Others couldn't do it. It's not their fault. It's just your brain has to be wired a certain way to code, right? No question. And so I think also people's brains have to be wired to critically think, and not everyone is going to be doing that. So then I think you do get into a society which already has some have and have nots, right? Where AI is starting to take the non-critical thinking jobs, right? It's not taking the CEO jobs. It's not taking the VP jobs, not because of title, but because they got there for a reason. And I know people want to, it's very easy to throw stones at people at certain levels. But the fact is, they worked their way up. They started at the bottom like everyone else. They worked their way up. They got to the top. And they're there because probably their critical thinking skills are really good. Their people skills also are really good, right? You need both. You need IQ. You need critical thinking skills. You need people skills, EQ, right? And that starts to bifurcate all of society into, people who have real critical thinking skills. They're making a lot more money. And then those who don't. Now, AI comes along and says, these repetitive tasks at the sort of at the bottom rung, customer support. All right. Most of the US farmed out customer support 20 years ago. We sent it offshore because instead of, $15 an hour here, we could do it for $1 an hour over there. And we farmed it out. It's not right or wrong. We just did it because it made good business sense. Okay, customer support driven by AI now with no humans, at least at tier 1, is, 10 cents an hour, 90% lower cost, 10 cents an hour. I can train up an AI literally in an hour or two, and on any LLM actually, and stick that thing on the phone, and it'll start answering the phone, and we just transfer all the calls to that, and that will out-answer the humans at tier 1. Quite easily. I need your FAQs. I need your manuals. And it doesn't matter how much is there. It will know it all, and it will answer the human more right than humans answer humans on the other side, right? Just is what it is. And we have data now showing that it's faster. Time to resolution is faster. The number of calls that have to go to tier 2 is less, and so on and so on. If I were in customer support offshore, answering phones and opening up manuals and looking at FAQs and trying to answer people's questions, that job is done, right? That task is over. AI does it. It's repetitive, and it's a repetitive, simple set of knowledge. Doesn't require a ton of critical thinking. It's gone. So you need to upskill, and you need to become an expert at using AI, because people will hire you if you are. But if you're not, and you're still thinking, I'm just going to keep answering phones, these tasks are going to go. And there's a bunch of them that are going to go. There's no question. I don't know that it's, I don't think it's 50% of the United States workforce, because in the US, we really did farm out a lot of those repetitive tasks to offshore. But a lot of the offshore jobs are going to get hit first, and they're starting to get hit. That's starting. And I think it's really going to hurt over the next 5 years. Repetitive tasks, offshore, very, very tough.
What are some of the mid-level type tasks that you think AI is going to start to replace? So one that comes to mind is what you talked about, coding. A lot of people are saying AI can code. I'm told AI is a mediocre coder compared to a great coder. So
compared to a great coder, AI isn't in the same league.
And that's what I think people don't realize. I'm told the same thing on the marketing side, but I don't know. Like in the beginning, everyone was like, oh, we write better than AI, but then AI got better. And so in today's world, I don't know if AI would beat a great marketer or not. Maybe yes, maybe no. But what are those mid-level and higher types of opportunities are you seeing?
So no one's taking people out of marketing because of AI. What they're doing is they're making marketing far more productive. And the reason is, if I've got 8 people in my marketing team, let's say, and they're 8 good people, I still need them, but I want them to be more productive. So instead of 1 blog post a week, maybe we do 3 a week now, right? Maybe we 5 a week, right? Maybe I put out more content, better content. Maybe I do more analysis of the variety of ads that we have based on the data that we have with AI. So I expect my people to be 2x, 5x, X brain power of what they were before. Maybe if one of them retires, I don't replace them. But I'm not necessarily looking to cut my marketing team. However, I may not be looking to fill those 3 job openings that I had. And by the way, I haven't been able to fill them. So this works great. It works great. Most people remember, we have 8.5 million job openings in the United States today. Rough number. That's a lot of openings, and they're not getting filled because there's not enough people to fill them. So in a way, AI helps us by saying I can close those recs and save money, but I don't really need to lay off people, because what I want to do is I want to grow my company at, say, 20% a year, but not grow the headcount. Now, up until 3 years ago, to grow a company at 20% a year, my headcount went up how much? Percent. That's what we did. Well, now I can grow my company 20% a year and I don't need a headcount increase. So that's an effective decrease and an effective productivity increase that's incredible. But nobody lost their job because I actually want to grow the company, right? I want to serve more markets. I want to serve overseas markets, et cetera. That's how I would look at this. And that's what I see a lot of companies doing. Again, save customer support. Remember, they already offshored that and they're willing to let it go even cheaper, right? Your question is a good one. However, are there tasks, sort of mid-level there's mid-level tasks that really just go way, way faster, but they still need a robot overlord. That's the thing. You see, customer support, there's no robot overlord. The reason is AI can actually just answer the questions better than the humans and we're done. There is no overlord to say, do the following. I don't need a manager of it, right? There might be one director of customer support that the AI reports to, but it just does the entire task. In marketing, you don't have that. Now, maybe in sales, we do a little bit where these AIs can actually begin to sell. Now, we have the technology to do that. I haven't seen anyone actually do it except over email, but not like person to person, even though we can. So I think that's going to be interesting. But coders, entry-level coders, yes, AI is better than an entry-level coder in almost every case today. It's nowhere near what a world-class coder does because a world-class coder has real critical thinking skills and architecture skills. That's very different than a coding skill, right? My senior coders are really architects. They can architect a solution to a major set of problems. And later comes the coding to implement that architecture, right? And so you need architects. They also code, that's fine. But today I do see architects spell out, look, I need to do these 5 things. Here is the API. Okay, just write the underlying code that does those 5 things. And they're still there to correct it. Half the time it doesn't compile, there's issues, whatever. But it saves them time, maybe 10x their time. And what did it do? It eliminated the junior person they might have given that to at one time earlier, right?
And this is where the other concern is coming up. And it's not just in this, whether it be legal, accounting, any kind of job that is a knowledge job that we used to give it to the junior person. What do we do when there's no more junior people, so to speak, when the older person says,
I
you
know.
know what, I'm done?
Don't know.
Okay.
Don't know. That is an open question across the industry today, which is we don't need any junior people to do these jobs. Now what happens when people start to retire and there's no one who came up the ladder to be senior because we didn't accept the juniors? And so maybe there'll be apprentice programs and there'll be apprentices with senior people to become senior people. Don't know. I think industries will solve this problem, right? But it's like tier 2 and tier 3 customer support. They all started as tier 1s. And now there'll be no tier 1s. How do you become a tier 3? How do you get there? Don't have an answer. The world figures these things. A friend of mine once, often said, water finds its own level. Don't worry about it. It'll work itself out. And they do. They always work themselves out. It's a little bit like for the longest time, for 30 years, we haven't sent kids to trade schools. Instead, we send them to college. Great. Now what do we have? All the plumbers, HVAC repairmen, electricians are retiring. There's no one to do the job. And these kids that we want to stick in the job, you introduce them to an HVAC, system of any sort, right? A heater, an air conditioner, a chiller, whatever. They have no clue what a motor is from an engine from a solenoid. Like none. Why? They played video games. They came up with video games. They didn't repair cars. They didn't repair washing machines. They have no idea how any of this stuff works. So you have a hard time training them. You can't do it, right? So this is a problem. And we've got, I think the last plumber I had to use in Silicon Valley, it's like 3 weeks out, or I'll be there in 2 hours and it's $350 just to show up. And you go, okay, here's the $350. And then I start adding that up and I go, if he really does this 8 times a day, he's making $700,000 a year as a plumber. This is brilliant. This is way better than being a coder or anything else, right? And so water found its own level. It has raised the price so high that now there are kids going, what do I do to get into trade school? This was featured in the Wall Street Journal recently. I got to go to trade school. Look at the money I could make as a plumber, as HVAC, as electrician. And you might not start out at that number, but there's real money in the business. Fascinating.
All that stuff isn't really that hard. Of course, I grew up learning how to do it, but the trades are not that difficult if you spend a little time to do it. Now, electrical, sure, you have to understand, but for most home electrical, it's not that complicated
Right.
to do home electrical. HVAC, well, if you had a Radio Shack, you might know better about how to fix the boards in there. But again, a lot of that stuff isn't all that complicated to learn. And I think actually, though, in today's world, you put on a pair of glasses that are augmented. It can start
Right.
saying to you, check that wire, do
That's right.
this, look at that.
That is
So
exactly what's happening. So they're using RAG in the field. They're using a type of LLM that's trained with this data, a technique called RAG, a retrieval augmented generation. And what they're doing is they're taking less trained people and saying, just talk to the system and tell it what you see. Or use AR glasses and have it see what you see. And it'll say, okay, get this wrench, adjust it to this, okay? Because it's trained in the maintenance manual. Okay, replace this board, replace whatever it is, right? IBM's doing that. John Deere is doing this. It's really fascinating. So they are taking now less trained people and saying, just use AI next to you and follow what the AI says, right?
a lot of these things are changing. We're going to switch subjects in a minute. Before we do, what are you really seeing? Like, what's cutting edge in tech that people aren't aware is kind of going on right now?
I mean, the big thing is humanoid robots are really coming along because we're training them with a type of training that gets them to repeat over and over and over again until they learn, right? That's called reinforcement learning. And so that has changed what we think we may be able to do with robotics over the next 5+ years. That's exciting because it used to be that we had to program the darn thing ourselves, or I had to put something on me and train it with the way I did it. Now we can visually say, watch me make coffee. Now go in this room and make coffee. And there's going to be coffee all over the room and stuff spilled and all kinds of. But after 3 or 4 days of trying thousands of times, it will learn how to make coffee by itself, basically building its own neural net on the making of coffee with this particular Keurig coffee maker, right? That's fascinating. So once we get them to learn for themselves more and more, you can imagine a day when they know the thousands of things to do that it takes to come to your house and clean and put sheets on the bed and run the washing machine and the dryer, right? This is fascinating, and eventually to cook. So I mean, when we looked at Boston Robotics 10 years ago, the robots were great, but they had very limited functions because every function took a room full of coders weeks to program one function. Now, with robots more learning themselves, right? Some of this was used in the past, but much more now. And with English commands because of LLMs, we can imagine a day when you do have humanoid robots in your house helping you. And that is pretty cool. I want a couple of them. I want one that cooks. I want one that cooks and everyone wants one that cooks and cleans for an affordable price, right? The market for that is, I don't know, $1 trillion. It's a ridiculous number, right?
So my kids used to be in robotics when we were in high school, and we had to go fundraise. We went and talked to the CEO of a large conglomerate that owned a whole bunch of hotel chains. And he basically said, if you can build me a robot that'll clean the room, I'll give you $1 million, because that's literally what it comes down to.
I have spoken to the Hotels Association and many hotels. I just spoke to a whole group of hotels last week, CEOs from hotels and such. And I have images of, here are these humanoid robots changing bed sheets and cleaning rooms. And that is the future of hotels because their cost is labor. I mean, they have a physical plant, right? HVAC, electricity, et cetera. But the only cost they can really control is labor. And first of all, it's hard to hire labor. It's very hard to get people to clean hotel rooms. And when you do, it's just hard to get enough of them and hard to keep them there. And the turnover's high and all that. So there's no question that's an example of a job that will certainly go away in the next 10 years with robots that come into the room, recognize the room, change the sheets, do everything they need to do, clean the toilets, clean the floors, everything, vacuum, put new sheets on the bed, and leave. And they're going to do it, and they're not going to cost, $15 an hour. They're going to cost $1 an hour. And that is pretty fascinating, actually. So no question that's happening. And I think most people don't realize the acceleration there. And there'll be fits and starts, but it's exciting, and you can talk to them in English.
Here's George Jetson, finally here.
Yes, Rosie.
Rosie's there, taking care of everything.
That's right.
And the mechanical dog, too. Makes it easy to have a pet that you can leave home all day. And
what was the mechanical dog's name? Was it Ralph or Spot? I don't know. I have to look it up.
His boy, Elroy? I forget.
That was the boy. I don't think the boy was a robot, but okay.
No.
Yeah, his boy, Elroy.
It took a long time for that to come true.
It did. But also, he rode in cars that flew, flying cars, and there's a dozen companies not only demonstrating flying cars or eVTOLs, taxis, right? But one that might get FAA approval by the end of 2026. This is amazing. You're just going to get in, and it's going to take you to where you need to go, and you don't drive it. It does itself, and maybe at first they'll have a pilot in it or something. And these are sort of based on drone technology, so they're using lots of propellers basically to lift the thing and send it. But some are getting more advanced. They're all electric. They're not gas. So I've seen some that go 200 miles an hour and can go 200 miles on a single charge. And then the battery pack changes out when it lands or charges. This is coming along. So we will see flying taxis, if you will, over the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. I've seen them right in front of me. We just haven't had FAA approval yet, but they're going to get there.
Little by little. So with all of this, people might be a little depressed. How do we bring them joy, right? That at the end of the day, we're going to be humans. A lot of our problems are going to be solved. And yet, if we don't have meaning, we don't have joy in a sense. Maybe I have that wrong. But how do we have then, and how do we enjoy the abundance we're going to have?
Well, I'm working on this book called The Joy Success Cycle. And this really came out of the way I live my life. And people kept asking, what is it that you do? You're always so joyful, but why? What is that? And did that drive you to go get 95 patents and solve problems and things like that? And so I just started writing it down. I mean, this has been ongoing for decades. I started writing this stuff down and say, all right, what is it? How do I live my day? What are the rules that I live my day by? And in writing them down and giving lots of keynotes on this talk, you start to be able to detail it out in a way that it becomes almost a manual for someone to use. And I realize that joy is actually tied to success, not in the way people think. They think, well, when I'm successful, I'll have a lot of joy. The more joyful you are at every moment during the day, in every task that you're given, in every quandary, in every problem, the more you can look at it from the point of joy. The more you can do that, then the more success you will have, right? So the more joy you have throughout your day, the more success you will have. Now that leads you to some conclusions. For example, where do most humans fail in this? Well, most humans, certainly in the United States, let's just look at the U.S. because I know that best. Most U.S. citizens, believe it or not, complain internally or externally. Could be either one, but let's add them both up. About 100 times a day. Sometimes it's 90.
That's it?
Yeah, right. So some people it's 182. Some people it's 500. Rocky might be 800. But no, on average, a rough number, around 100 times a day, they have internal, external complaints. And it's not unusual for someone to get up and have 5 complaints in the first 2 minutes. Oh, it's raining. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, my knees hurt. Oh, my. And what I realize is I don't do that at all. It wasn't my nature. Now, I understand why it's people's nature. It's people's nature because our relatives who begat us were worried that there's a lion behind the tree, and there was lots of worry on everything and lots of concern and lots of complaints. But we don't have to complain. There is no lion behind unless you're hiking in the Sierra Nevada, there might not be a lion behind the tree. And so we have an opportunity to actually not live our day like that. And instead, when we get up, we should start to count the number of complaints we have, internal and external, including those we share and those we don't share, a day. So what I'm going to suggest to your viewers and listeners here on this great podcast is to get up tomorrow and count the number of complaints you have, internal or external. Some of you verbalized, some of them you didn't. Maybe you come up with 80. Maybe it's 56. Maybe it's 182. I don't know. And then the following day, you start to have a goal throughout your life. And you know what your goal is? It's my rule, and I live by it. 1 complaint a day. You only get 1. Now, this is a gamification of the problem, right? And the reason this is important is you get out of bed, you're not even thinking about the rule, and you go, oh, my knees hurt. You have used up your 1 complaint for the day. Now, everything you look at, whether you've got to fire someone, when you've got an angry letter, where you've got to work on a contract that's really difficult, whatever it is, you now have to find the joy in each of those moments, in every task on your to-do list, and everything you do. What's the joy in answering this email? What's the joy in talking through this, right? That changes your outcome to have a higher level of success. Because And there's science that backs this. If you look at all of these moments with joy, what happens is you start to have a very open mind to solving real problems for real people in your company, outside your company, in your household, whatever it is. It changes everything. You want to drive profit first. It's a way to drive profit first, right? You will find better ways to do it, because when you are full of complaints and you've driven yourself down to this level, oh, this sucks, oh, blah, 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 so much lower than when you're at a 10 on what we call a positive quotient versus a 0. And when you're at a 10, your mind is open, your mind is clear, and you are ready to change the world every moment of every day. It changes everything. And so if you start with one thing, if you learn one thing, the book isn't out yet, but when it comes out, this is just one chapter. It's that one complaint a day rule is a game changer.
What do you do if you get to the end of the day? Should you just enjoy the one complaint and have fun, or do you just let it go?
I have many days with 0 complaints, and that's
Okay.
great. 0 is better than 1. No, you don't store them up. You don't get 2 tomorrow. But well, the big thing here is tying joy to success in the opposite way that we thought about it, right? That's the big deal here. I want to tell you, success is because of joy, not joy because of success. We know lots of people have been successful and never found any joy. But I can tell you, people who have joy all the time will find the maximum success that they can in their life. And that could be success with family. It could be however you define success. You have to define your success and define your sense of purpose and all those other things, right? But this is really critical. And when you tie them together, then people want to do it. When you just read a book about happiness, you go, yeah, sure, I'd like to be happy. Oh, well. But when we make the case for joy to drive success, then you go, well, I want to be successful. Okay, how do you define success? I want to make a lot of money. Okay, great. Well, let me tell you the first way to do that is to have joy at every moment of the day. Okay, well, if you're going to have joy every moment of the day, that means you can't have complaints, because every time you complain, it takes away, it's a joy killer. It takes away so much joy that it can take you an hour to work your way out of that trench. Don't want to do that. So that's what leads you to the one complaint a day. Since I want joy, since I want to be successful, I want joy. And since I want joy, I can't complain. Therefore, complaints don't lead to success. They lead to failure. So don't complain.
That's going to leave a lot of people in this country with nothing to do all day. I mean, at least that based on social media.
Yeah. Yes. If that's all you do is well, I will tell you, we all know people who all they do is complain, and rarely do they find success. In fact, they're just unhappy most of the time. And we talk about that in the book too. We talk about, there may be some people who are joy killers in your life. There's lots of things that are joy killers, right? There could be
You got to
people,
get rid
and
of
you
them.
may have to bless them out of your life, with joy, with a smile, but go, all right, that can't work for me. It can't continue to work for me. It's not going to work for me. And that's fine too. It's
And
okay.
we've seen that with a lot of people who've traveled to a third world country, or even if just we've had people come on and they're sitting next to a billionaire looking out at the window, and the billionaire is upset, and the kids outside the window with barely nothing and a stick are joyful and having fun. And
Right.
it's a
Right.
state.
Right. It's a state of mind. You control your joy. But the first thing to control your joy is something else you control, how much you complain. So if you complain, you won't have joy. If you don't have joy, you don't have success. So stop complaining. That's the start, right? Take other joy killers out of your life, but that one you fully control. I fully control whether I'm going to complain, or I can fully control right now whether I can complain internally about this podcast or not. I'm doing it. I'm not complaining. I'm joyful about it. But you understand my point. I could choose that. And a lot of people would go, I don't like these questions. I do like the question. I'm just kidding you. But you get the point. And now it's not going to be a successful podcast. And by the way, you've had guests on like this. We all have, and you go, wow, they're just not into it, or they don't say a lot, and they're having a bad day. Stop it. It's not going to end well, right? Nothing ends well when you complain all the time. So just don't complain. Then you will have more joy. You're going to make every moment of what you do during the day joyful. And they're all joy moments. Everything I write down that I have to do today is a joy moment. And that's going to lead to more success, however you define success.
And I've heard you say that you can find joy in pretty much anything.
Anything.
So let's do that. Because what are some examples of things you wouldn't expect to find joy in that you find joy in?
And look, we are talking about your normal workday, home day, whatever. We are not talking about you just came from the doctor and you have cancer. Okay, that's not, I understand that is a different situation, right? But 99% of our days are actual normal days. We think they're not. Oh, but today I had this customer, and today I had this employee, and today I had this, and today, okay, those are normal days. Get over yourself, okay? That's not, yes, a terrible health crisis, a terrible car accident, not normal. So we're talking about the normal days, right? So when we're talking about the normal days, what are the things that happen? Sure, some employee yells at you, a coworker yells at you, right? And you get in a big argument with someone. That's actually, I mean, I hope you don't get in arguments with people, but these are kind of normal days. These things happen, right? These are people interactions, right? You need to actually find the joy in that moment. So how do you find joy in firing someone? We've all had to fire someone. How do you find joy in it? Well, it's not working out for us. It's not working out for him or her. And they will be better off, and we will be better off if they find a different job that is a better match for their skill set. That's the truth. That is the truth. They may not realize it when I tell them, but that is the truth, right? And we all know it as I say it here, right? And so I look at the joy in that opportunity and say, look, I know you don't believe me today, but 3 months from now, you're going to be happier. You're going to be more joyful. You're going to be in a better position. We're going to be in a better position. Everyone's better. And we appreciate your time here. Not a good match. Or, by the way, was a great match for 7 years. Not a good match going forward because, as Marshall Goldsmith wrote, right? What got you here won't get you there. And sometimes that's people, right? What got you here might have been that person who was terrific. And now we've shifted gears and we're going in a different direction, or we've got different channels, or you're looking for that book because it's probably around.
There's another book, but you finish and I'll talk about it.
Yeah. And so, things change in companies, and all of a sudden where we really, really appreciate your work and it was top of game. Now for the new direction, what we're going, I don't need those skill sets. Love you. Don't need the skill sets. Not good for us, not good for you. So I'm going to do it with joy. I'm going to do it with a smile, and I may even help find you a job, right? It's not any disrespect, just sorry. And by the way, change is normal in the workplace. And by the way, leaving a workplace is normal. Almost no one today works for the same company their entire career. Okay. Most people, if it's Silicon Valley, the average person in a tech company lasts like 3.5, 4 years, right? This is really fascinating. So, and some of them, they take themselves out, and some of them, the company says you're no longer a fit for what we're doing. And so when that day comes, don't be shocked. Right? Change is normal. Layoffs are normal. Terminations are normal. It would be abnormal for you to stay in one place forever. It is normal for you to part ways. And if the day you get there, you realize that this is a temporary assignment. You drop some golden nuggets, you pick up some gold nuggets, and someday the temporary assignment will be over. Then you expect it. You expect it any day. I don't know if it's in a month, I don't know if it's in a year, but someday we're going to part ways. Either because I find something different or they want someone different. And you can't feel bad about that because that was the contract the day you walked in. It said at-will employee. Couldn't say it in more clear terms. Basically, it says, this is a temporary assignment. I know you're an employee, and that temporary assignment could end in an hour or could end in 10 years and could end from either one of our sides. So why are people shocked? Shocked. I can't believe you would let me go. What? Where did it say it's a permanent assignment? Guys, it's temporary.
They were going to quit next week anyway.
Well, there is that too. Surprisingly, that happens a lot. By the time you let someone go, they were already looking because they knew. Most people, by the time they're let go, it's not a shock. Unless, sometimes, look, I've been involved. I was working for a company many years ago, and they just, a public company, and they shut down their Silicon Valley headquarters. And so everyone in Silicon Valley, hundreds of people, just one day, it was like, sorry, we're closing, so we're letting everyone go. It has nothing to do with your performance. It's just, we're closed. Okay, well, that was that, right? I mean, again, this is normal in business. Everybody get used to it and know that the day you start a job, it's going to end. It's temporary assignment. So I always look at it that way. And anytime it's time for me to leave, or anyone to leave, you have to look at it. One door closes, another door opens. And I wonder what that next door will be and how interesting it'll be. And yes, maybe it'll take you a week to find a job, and maybe it'll take you a year to find a job. But you're going to find something that's now a better match for you going forward, because that one couldn't have been a perfect match because it's over for whatever reason, right? By definition, it ended. Not a perfect match anymore.
Well, and we had Mark Moses on, who wrote the book Make Big Happen, and he takes companies through all the stages of growth. And the biggest thing he did is he says, look at the pictures of the leadership team throughout the growth. And one thing you will notice is that the leadership team keeps changing.
Yep.
Because the person who get you from here to there isn't the one who's going to get you from there to there and there
That's
to
right.
there. And so these things have to rotate. And we all are good at our part. And maybe I'm good at taking someone from 5 to 20 million, but then there's another guy who's good at 20 to 100 and
That's
someone
right.
from 100 to a billion, or somebody's good at cutting the axe and taking us from a billion to 100.
This is what people need to realize is I love that example that you gave, which is look at the leadership team. And you look at the leadership team over 20 years and it changed, 5 times. Pretty much the entire team, including the CEO. Now look at if the board is taking CEOs out every 3 to 5 years. It's kind of on average, by the way. Your job is also at risk every so often, not because of performance, but because the company outgrew you, you have different skills, and whatever, let it go. I mean, anytime I've taken a CEO role, I know it's temporary. On average, a CEO in Silicon Valley at a private company lasts about 3 years. On average, a CIO lasts less. Why? That's just what it is. They outgrow you, you outgrow them, whatever, let it go. So that's my point is, like, this is inevitable and you're going to cry about it, okay? Stop crying about something that's inevitable. As we sit here, it's inevitable that everyone listening to this podcast, unless they're nearing retirement, and even then, everyone listening to this podcast is going to no longer work for the company they're working for sometime in the future, probably statistically in the next 3 to 5 years. Either you'll retire, you'll find another job, or they will toss you out. Not because you're not a good person. It's not personal. It's just business. So let's be joyful about it. Let's find the joy even in that moment, regardless of what side you're on. So I think we can find joy in anything because that's like the toughest one, and we can find our way to joy there.
I don't know what retirement is, but that's for another episode.
No, I don't either. Well, retirement today, I think for us, probably for you, is very different than what we had before. When my dad retired, there's no computer at home. There's no work to do. There's so the sense of purpose is mow the lawn, bowl, golf, watch TV. I'm fully connected. I'm on boards. I'm running companies. I'm inventing. I don't know that ever goes away until my brain doesn't function, right? As long as my brain's functioning, I might as well do those things. I do 40 to 50 keynote speeches a year. I'm all over the world talking about either AI or the Joy Success Cycle. I love that. I have an entertainment background too, so I get to mix theater and my 95 patents, right? So I can really talk from a leadership position, from a doing position, from a hands-on position, but do so in an entertaining way. And why would I ever want to give that up? I want to give that up. I don't. I can do that at 90. As long as I can stand, and I will, because I exercise, I do Pilates every day. I'm going to keep doing it.
I am right there with you on that. What belief or habit has given you the greatest return on life?
Oh, the one complaint a day. You can, live by the Joy Success Cycle. I know the book isn't out, but when it comes out, do what it says. Why? You just live a great life. I enjoy every day. I enjoy every day because I have nothing to complain about. I get up and I go, I'm alive. This is amazing. It's amazing. I get to live another day and I get to make that day what I want of it.
I think what I'm going to do from now on is just go, is this my one complaint for today? It's not worth it. All right, next.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yes, it was.
What's one internal shift you made that kind of changed everything else in your life?
Well, there are one internal shift that changed everything. Look, I would say some of that is really sitting down and writing down all the stuff around the Joy Success Cycle. There's no question. That's on one side. Okay, on another side, there was a time I got my first patent. Like, I didn't set out as a kid to go, I know I'm going to invent all these things that people use. I'm going to invent the AI assistant, and that's going to change the world. I did invent the AI assistant, and it is changing the world. However, I didn't set out to do that. I set out to solve problems. And at some point, I realized find pain points and solve pain points, real pain points that people will pay you for. And that long term is going to work out really, really well. And that's all I have been doing my whole career.
That is the secret of business. And most people don't get that.
No, you know all these companies and startups that have a solution looking for a problem. Lots of
Correct.
Yes. Not going to happen.
You've had tremendous success. So what's one thing about all that success can't take away from you?
The success can't take away from you? Boy, I don't know how to answer that. That's interesting. Look, I'd say be humble and be curious. I don't know if that's the answer you want, but I think these are very important things. Whether you're successful or not successful, you have to be humble. No matter how good you are, trust me, there's someone better. No matter how smart you are, there's someone smarter. No matter how rich you are, there's someone richer. And one of the things we talk about in the book is one of the killers of joy is to compare yourself to someone else. That is a joy killer, because there is always a neighbor with a bigger, better house. There's always a neighbor with a better dog. There's always a neighbor with a bigger child. There's always, like, stop it. That is a joy killer. And you can't do anything about it. Yes, you could go and burn down their home, right? But I mean, practically you can't do anything about it. And there will always be people with more. Oh, look at those. That isn't fair that they have that yacht. I don't know if it's fair or not. Who cares? Life isn't fair. Get over that, right? Don't compare, right? You might say, I want to be better off next year than I am today, and I'm going to work towards that with more joy and more success, etc. That's great. Stop comparing yourself to others and be really humble, because when you're humble, you're curious. And when you lose being humble, when you stop being humble, you stop being curious, because I don't have anything to learn, right? Tiger Woods, as I always used to say, but it's still true, Tiger Woods has a coach for a reason. There's still more to learn, and there's stuff the coach can see that he can't. Right? Best golfer on the planet for many, many years, still had a lot to learn. By the way, he has other things to learn, but that's for another episode.
Yeah, I don't know how much joy he has, but again, that's for another episode.
Well, if he reads my book when it comes out, he'll have more joy than he has had getting clubbed by his ex-wife with his golf clubs, right? Maybe he deserved it, but dude, what are you doing?
'Tis life. And if you burn down your neighbor's house, I've got a feeling that we can put you in a place where your neighbor's cell will look just as nice as yours.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's what we'll do.
If people would like to learn more about you, check out your artificial intelligence AI that impersonates you.
Yeah.
They
I
do
have
all of that.
Fully interactive avatar. It's trained on me. It sounds like me. It looks like me. It's really fun to interact with. You can go to kevinsurace.com. That's my website, kevinsurace.com, all one word. And at the bottom, it says, do you want to interact with Kevin right now? And there's a text chat, and there's audio chat, and then there's video chat. You can bring up the video chat and literally interact with me. It's really fun. You can ask me all kinds of questions, and I'll answer them.
That is awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Rocky.
Hey, thanks for checking out the full unedited video of the Richer Soul podcast. You can get the full audio podcast with intro, outro, and a ton more details here on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Don't forget, we've got hundreds of episodes for you to go back through, and you can also get episode information on the Richer Soul website as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you're automatically updated as to what's going on and every time we release a new episode. The first few episodes of the Richer Soul podcast actually lay out the entire framework that everything is built on over all of these years. So check them out as well. Thanks for listening.